And we're recording. Hello, welcome to today's interview. My name is Bryce Tubbs. With me, I have Victor Ung. Now, Victor is helping social impact creators and business owners disengage from the overthinking brain and re-engage with their intuition. I'm very excited to have him. I'm sure that you're going to be calmed down just by his presence. I know I have been before the interview. Is there anything else you'd like me to add before we get started?
No, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for bringing me on. Excited to help kind of talk about, developing that intuition within ourselves. So, yeah.
Excellent. So, what was life like before coaching?
Yeah, that's there's a lot in there. Excuse me. A lot of my life has been doing a lot for others, right? A lot of doing what has been right and what I thought I was supposed to do or what I should do, coming from both an Asian American perspective, person of color, as well as a man. There were certain, expectations put around us. And what that meant was a limitation in what was acceptable and what was um, and 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 that limitation also limited my expressiveness. So I'd say what life was before coaching, before getting myself, coaches, as well as becoming a coach, was a lot of complacency, a lot of apathy. um, I talk a lot about how that social stigma that was cast upon me, um, you know, created a lack of emotional intelligence. It's my specialty and topic of interest, but within that means it's, you know, being able to identify and actually embrace the other emotions that we have as social emotional beings, right? um, I was definitely taught subconsciously to suppress anything that wasn't joy or anger, and even within that, if within anger too, was taught to keep that together, and hold that in. And then with joy, it, for some reason created a stigma that was a traditionally more feminine trait, that, that I, being too expressive or emotional, wasn't manly enough. And what that did though was, created a lack of confidence and assertiveness about me to be able to stand behind what I felt and valued. And I was passed up for promotions, not given enough responsibility, not having that trust within me. I joke around that I would swipe life by women, by not really able to express myself, not being able to be vulnerable, not able to really be human. And then I procrastinated a lot of my creative pursuits as well, thinking that I wasn't good enough, thinking that, who would listen to me, or a lot of that factor in there. That so life before this was, yeah, it was very easy, it was comfortable, but it was stagnant, I'd say.
Oh, wow. So, so what was easy about it? Because you're just talking about you're living under a stigma, you're living under all this pressure. Was it
Yeah.
just, the external things were easy?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean in terms of, looking for what is comfortable, what is familiar, what has been developed as the, the what society has expected as something that works, which is obviously, you get good grades, get to college, get a degree, go to a good job, save for money for retirement. And I'm not like, I obviously love that. Like, obviously that's how you develop stability in life as well. Um, but kind of narrowing in on just that as measures of success and measures of, happiness isn't what will help us grow and feel a fulfilled life. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the trigger? When was enough enough, and when did you start to move towards, where you are today?
Yeah. I come from the technology consulting background. I majored in informatics and very much love technology and user experience, user design. And within that, I've always had an interest in psychology and in people and in how that that bridge between people and technology can be developed, right? And but yeah, so after school, went directly into technology, doing a lot of web development, product management, and met a lot of great people until I hit a point in well, there's one particular project and client that wasn't the most collaborative, right? And noticing just within work culture as the symptom of this, where the lack of communication between people was missing, right? I mean, uh, there were so many things that on the business level or on the client side was identified as a problem, but nobody was getting to the root of it. Nobody was getting to the core of what they really needed, right? On a more emotional level. And um, I think it's one of those hard topics to talk about in a corporate and workplace environment, right? To open up and talk about the needs in a way that doesn't get in the way of productivity in business. But ignoring that for too long causes conflict,
Yeah.
and that's why nothing gets done. And so that's what I noticed within like that that project was, wow, like I am losing so much morale, so much sense of impact within what I was doing, because nobody felt like they were willing to talk about the hard things.
Mhm.
Um, and so there was one particular moment where I got in a fight with one of my clients, and we have an open floor plan too, so it was very public, and it just seemed like there was how I saw that within that workplace was the the fact that we couldn't regulate and couldn't manage our emotions. And then I kind of used that and saw that within myself as well, and how that had bled into all the other areas of my life.
Well, wow. That's actually kind of ironic. So they ignore that because they want to increase productivity. Then
Yeah,
they lose productivity because people disengage, and they it's so ironic.
exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I
god.
mean, it's one of those things that like people don't, you know, it's like we see what's tangible, right? We'll see the physical part. I think that's why if you were trying to lose weight, right? Like you'll do the things that are would be directly be impactful for your body, right? But we forget about how to develop that on a core level, like how what we consume affects that.
Mm.
I don't know if I really explained that correct
I mean,
clearly
I,
enough,
I
but
I understood it. So,
yeah,
and I'm not overly smart. So hopefully my audience, got some great things out of that answer as well. But so you know, what problems are people trying to solve when they come to? Because I don't know if they actually realize that they have an emotional intelligence problem. What do they
yeah,
think that they're having?
yeah. I mean, I think the first like easy sign and symptom is stress, right? It's your ability to handle stress, and maintain clarity as well as productivity within that, in high pressure situations, in conflict, um, in just the fast paced environment that you have to make quick decisions. And so noticing within how you are working and how you're living, and the the sort of brittleness around maintaining composure, maintaining your frame, I think is a big part of that. And so workplace is an easy example of that, right? But of course it shows up in multiple ways, like within your relationships, like how comfortable are you going into conflict? How comfortable are you um, being uncomfortable? In entrepreneurship, how willing are you to step into fear, into risks, right? Um, and how does your emotions play a role in that? So I definitely see emotional intelligence as the core of a lot of the social issues that we see today. But like you said, it's something that isn't completely understood and still a very vague general topic. But I think, yeah, stress management and decision making is a really big part of that.
So let me ask you this, right? In your opinion, if someone is dealing with stress, they have a lot of tension in their body, should they, kind of sit with it, understand it, or and like, just assume that's just a part of life? Or are there things that you can do to kind of move past that and solve it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I mean, most of it is going to be finding what really works for you, right? And finding what triggers or what factors will invoke the stress in the first place.
Uh,
But if that, I know that could be tough and really hard to sit down and identify. So when you're in the moment feeling the stress, a big part of it is becoming aware of what's happening. Um, Within both yourself and your body, as well as the environment around you. Um, and a lot of what I sort of help people practice is something called the three A's, right? So it's awareness, acceptance, or action,
mhm,
and action. And so first, it is becoming aware, of course, what is feeling, what's happening within you, what's happening in your environment, and then accepting the fact that there are certain stresses and factors that maybe you don't have control of, uh, and accepting the fact that this is part of life, right? And then you can decide what action to take, how to respond to that, or how not to respond to that as well, right? I guess I mean, inaction is also
and action.
an action, right? um, and so yeah, the three A's: awareness, acceptance, and action.
Okay. So, who do you work with? Because I hear workplace, but is it like a particular type of company? Is it like people who are in the tech side just like you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly very new to this as well, right? I am just starting out and making the transition from my previous career in technology consulting. I think I can use that experience to relate to a lot of those in technology. Um, and so that's mostly who I've been working with so far, are professionals who are maybe a couple of years into their career, and starting to see the signs of burnout, and of um, sort of they would look at the trajectory ahead of them and not feel satisfied, not feel excited, right? And so far I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching to really dive into the nuances of that. There's so much that we could do, and so much knowledge out there and so much information to consume. And sure, that will work if you can implement that.
Mm,
But what I love about the one-on-one is like really diving into the nuances and the personal side of what's going on with your life specifically. So it's someone who really cares about accelerating their growth,
mm.
after realizing that they're not growing enough in where they're at currently.
So they generally come to you, but you don't really try and convince people who you can automatically see need it. You're only really targeting people who really want to change.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I totally believe that you have to meet them halfway, right? I'm not here to tell people what to do or convince them in any way that this is what they need. Like, I'm not going to be some magic bullet for everybody, right? Uh, but it is, you know, uh, coming to an awareness of where you are and admitting to that. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of us is, admitting to the fact that maybe we do need help. And I could very much resonate with that, being an Asian American and a man. It's like, I got to figure everything out on my own. I got to be independent. I got to be, that solid foundation, and it can be hard to reach out, um, but I know that I can't be the one to pull the people out or to, quote unquote, fix people.
Mm.
I'm here to be the sounding board for when you're ready to jump. But again, like you said, it's definitely meeting them halfway.
Well, so, was part of managing emotions and part of, like learning how to act. Do you guys focus anything on breath work? What do you guys like focus on when talking about taking action in response to conflicts and stuff?
Yeah, breath work is very important. I like to use something called the 6-second method. Uh, and again, when you're in that moment where you're feeling everything tense up and you're not really sure what that emotion is or what's happening, and you can feel clouded within your brain, right? Um, is to think about and remember the 6-second method, to breathe in for 3 seconds and to breathe out for three.
Uh,
And I know that, like, I've practiced that a couple times in my work, and it can definitely feel cheesy, right? It can feel corny and maybe awkward to be silent for a whole 6 seconds. It can seem a long time, especially when you're like directly in the moment.
right.
But even doing so, even just pausing for that 6 seconds helps you really zoom out, to look at what is happening at a bigger picture, right? We can get so caught up in the weeds of things, into the moment itself, and want to immediately defend ourselves or to fight back. And um, even just taking that 6-second breath is important to slow down, right? I know that's something that's really hard for a lot of us, but breath work is something that is really cool to be mindful of, because it's both a voluntary and involuntary experience.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this, right? Because if you if you know that a conflict is going to come, it's easy to say, I'm going to do the 6-second method. Do you teach do you do you teach them how to, identify when they're getting worked up faster so that, or do you guys practice this ahead of time so it becomes automatic when they're actually in the moment?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, uh, first it's going to be identifying the symptoms, right? Like, how are you currently responding in not just workplace? I don't focus just on workplace, but even on in your relationships or in your creative pursuits. Like, what emotions are coming up in the moment that's debilitating you, right? That's confusing you. And looking at, I like to ask what, right, rather than why. Um, if we ask why, it can make us feel very defensive. It makes us come up with reasons that might not be completely validated or true. Um, so asking what will help take a look at your environment and the context of what's happening. And then from there, you can identify all the different triggers that will, invoke certain emotions. And from there, kind of work backwards. Okay, so what are those needs then that you're missing, right? And what were those factors that invoke that. So it definitely starts with looking at the symptoms and what's happening in the moment, but then to work backwards and say, all right, let's uncover what the underlying beliefs and the underlying assumptions are, for why or what made you respond to that.
So can I ask you this, right? So, you talked earlier about, like working on how comfortable are you with, uncertainty? How comfortable are you with fear? For, a lot of people watching are going to be business owners. What are some of like the main, causes of fear and causes of uncertainty in their business that, someone would not think about? Like maybe they don't have many clients yet. I'm sure, that's obvious, but what are some underlying fears that are causing them
Yeah.
to react to
You
them?
know, from my experience, I think it a big part of business is it's having the man. That's a big question. I think a lot of what I would come to is that a lot of us will think that we're not good enough, you know, and that's a fear that could be the core and stems from so many. That's the core that stems into so many areas and different types of fear. Fear of putting ourselves out there, fear of making the ask, fear of making the offer, uh, fear of uh, just taking certain actions, right? That at the core of it is your own belief in yourself,
Mm.
right? I think I'd say a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs who go through failures are not able to withstand that if they don't believe in themselves, right? If they don't believe that the next time they do it or try something, that it could work. Because I know from my experience, like this is my first venture into entrepreneurship, so I'm not going to claim that I know everything about, starting a business, um, but I think in terms of being able to take a risk, it's knowing that failure is a part of it, right? And to know that there's a belief that something that's really intangible, it's really hard to communicate, that is going to help you get past that. um I think I might be blabbering a little bit at this point,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah.
think it's good. So let me ask you this. So you said failure is a part of it. Do you think that there should be many failures along your journey, or is it, one failure and most people give up? You know,
Yeah, you mean like,
so how do you view failure? Is failure a one time or is failure continuous?
I think failure is going to be continuous, right? I think if you only fail once, that that doesn't really say much about your journey, right? How many risks or how many massive uh I don't know, pieces of action are you taking if you're only just failing once? And then if you fail once and you give up, that obviously then you're done, right? And you can move on to something else. So if you do want to continue building a life and creating, something of yourself, I think many I am losing my words. I'm sorry about that. Just there's just so many ways to fail. And again, if you're not taking enough risks, then you're just not failing enough, because you can
Yeah.
learn so much more from what doesn't work than what does.
Ugh, yeah, but I'd like to look at other people's doesn't work than do it myself, you know?
Well, of course, of
Yeah.
course. And actually, and I think that's huge, right? There's ways to mitigate it, right? There's ways to uh, find ways to avoid mistakes so you don't waste time, money, and energy. but you have to be cognizant of, all right, where are you doing that just to feel safe or secure, and you know, just feeling comfortable, or where are you taking the risk? Where are you getting uncomfortable to grow more than you think is possible?
Can I ask you this question? So, how big are your words and your thoughts in terms of, success and failure?
Hmm. I like that. I I very much believe that your thoughts impact your feelings and emotions, and that impacts your behavior and actions. Um, it's something that how many times do we, you know, um, feel a certain way and then have a certain thought and just impacts how we feel later on, right? And then that either spirals us or motivates us, depending on what you think about. Um, and then based on how you feel, it really impacts what you do.
Yeah.
So, um, for example, I think if I'm trying to think of something on the spot, but if I were to go into, so I've started my own podcast as well, and there were I sat on that for so long, right? Thinking to myself, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm, who the hell's gonna listen to me? Like, I don't have credibility or background in psychology or all that experience and whatnot. Um, and that creates a lot of feelings around not being good enough, around sort of complacency, uh, and what that then results in is a behavior that is, that keeps you in place, that doesn't allow you to do anything, right? And so after some point, you do have to start telling yourself, what are the thoughts that are serving you versus those that aren't,
Mm,
and if this is really what you want to do, um, how can you change your thoughts and emotions to help you accelerate that?
mm. Um, can I ask, well, I was going to ask you one question, and then something came up. So, the feeling of not being good enough, does that affect you like in certain areas? Like for example, like you were saying with your podcast. So it affects you in terms of your podcast, but it didn't affect you in terms of starting your business. So is it something that underlines and harms us in everything, or is it only in certain things that it affects us?
No, I mean, it's something that will come up every time. And I do, I'm going to definitely throw out the disclaimer that, even within my own practice and learning about emotional intelligence and all of these tools, it can be still really hard to implement, still hard to exercise, right? And it's not that you're going to be a complete master and will one day switch and say, I am great now, I'm good enough. And I mean, there is a way to, never mind. So so
Well,
there
that's my
is
next question, actually.
sorry.
That's my next question, actually. Do you believe in removing bad beliefs, or do you build good beliefs on top of them?
Definitely build it on top. Though the negative beliefs, the negative emotions are gonna be there. I think our minds and ourselves are our own worst critic, right? We're the hardest on ourselves. And if you, like anything, try to suppress it, try to avoid it, it's only gonna grow and fester on its own and come back tenfold, right? And so again, like, I think I'm really advocating a lot for the triple A's there, of being aware of those negative emotions, but most importantly, accepting them, right? And so um, if you can do that, if you can kind of embrace the fact that we are imperfect and that there's no way to be in a complete utopia of a human being, right? that almost, pain is a part of it. There's something, peaceful about that.
He, I totally missed the last sentence because like I heard something peace. Like I was
Yeah,
hearing it in real
yeah,
time. Like you said peaceful, and then it kind of threw me. I was like, wait, so can you say that last part one more time?
yeah. So what I meant is more so that when,
Because that was a good one. You were like peace in the storm or something, basically. Like
yeah, exactly.
you said.
I think there's definitely, because the more, I think a Western culture is a very good example of this, where we very much value the pursuit of happiness, right? And so we'll do everything to be happy and to to surround ourselves with things that make us happy, and we'll suppress anything that doesn't. How many times do we, when we're bored and we'll like immediately try to entertain ourselves by looking at our phones or scrolling through it? How many times are we, about to cry or feel any deeper emotion, and we'll like immediately wipe our tears away or look away, or not show that? And it's something that's ingrained in the culture. Like, our default answer is, when you're asked like how you're doing, is good, right? And and to a point, like, it's great to be like optimistic and positive, of course. But if there is a part of you that's trying to suppress it and trying to, try to contain it, I think of it as like, as sort of a black glob of a being that all it wants is attention. All it wants is some way to feel like it belongs, right? And if you try to push it away and stiff arm it, it's only going to try to wrap you and surround you even more. And uh, and so, yeah, when I say kind of, pain is part of life, and almost there's peace in embracing that, it's realizing that, it's like the yin and yang in a way, right? You can't have the yin without the yang, and vice versa. And so, rather than trying to contain that and maintain our sense of happiness and suppress the negative, uh, there's peace in realizing that, this is just part of it. Like another good example is when you're in traffic, right? How many times, like, do we create that stress within ourselves, uh because it's like, oh, all these cars are on the road, and how do I like get past all of them? But um it's up to you to decide what you can control and what you can't,
Mm.
right? And knowing that, you can't necessarily control the traffic depending on where you are, and the routes that you take. There's peace in that. It's a realizing that, all right, I'm here, and there's nothing I can do about it, but that's okay.
So, let me ask you this. What is your vision for your life?
Yeah, it's a big question. um I think I see a lot of us who are classically trained or traditionally trained to, of course, improve our intellectual minds, right? And to rationalize everything, to value our left side of the brain and logic. And I do very much still, value that as well. But what's left out is the connection to our hearts and to this extra source of information, right? It's this intuition about ourselves. It's why we see so many people make poor decisions in their lives, because they're suppressing that feeling, that emotion, that intuition within them that tells them what is right or wrong. And only they can understand what is right or wrong for themselves, right? So what I envision in my life is being able to help people connect into that extra, that extra information that isn't being tapped into, that source of data, and help them make more effective long-term decisions for their life. Help them envision what is an ideal, life for them, and what fits for them according to their values, according to what they care about, according to their skills, and to be that sounding board and that support character for them. um, I know I definitely could have used a lot of that, and obviously still can, right? I think it's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
But if I were to have someone uh, to really reflect back what it is I truly, truly want, not just what other people tell me what I should want. I don't know. I don't try to think too much, try to have too much regret about what I do and about my past and whatnot. But I don't know. I could be in a different place, right? And in a place that is something that better aligns with who I am and what I want to be and what I want to do. So I don't know exactly how that is going to look like or what that looks like. I am doing a lot of, content creation and helping, as I research, especially emotional intelligence, but other tools, other ways to, reframe our perspectives and our mindset. I want to share that along, through my content or through whatever that is. Could be coaching or maybe an online course or a group program that I'm building up. And I know I'm seeing, I'm boring you there a little bit, but
Oh no, I had a hard ass workout.
yeah, totally.
No, but you wouldn't be boring me because I asked you the question.
Yeah.
But hey, um, leading into that, are you like working on any special projects right now?
Yeah, so I am building out a group coaching program that will be assisted by a video course. So there's a way for those interested to, self-study on emotional intelligence, on stress management techniques, on a lot of decision-making tools, on a lot of creativity tools and development within that. So and then with the option to add on personal coaching if they want to have more support and accountability with applying those what they learn. So that's mainly what I've been working a lot on right now is developing a program that will be very specific um, to emotional intelligence and to improve that skill set, that muscle within us. I definitely imagine this as a skill, right? It's a muscle that we have to train and exercise. We have these physical gyms to train our physical muscles, none that are emotional, right? How do we stretch? How do we grow our emotional well-being and health? That's kind of what I'm attacking.
Can I ask you this question? So why did you choose to put the course in front of the one-on-one coaching, just in terms of when the people actually take it? Is it just because you want to make sure by the time they get to you one-on-one, they already have some base skills so you can just fine tune them, or?
Yeah, that is part of it for sure. And I also do think that, I mean, obviously one-on-one coaching is expensive, right? And
Worth it.
it's very, yeah.
If you want
uh,
it, you got to pay.
yeah, I mean, of course, right? Um,
I mean,
but
yeah, I mean, unless you're charging like I had a lady on yesterday. She said the highest that she's charged for her five to 10 day course was $250,000,
mhm,
and she's gotten a couple clients with that.
yeah.
So I mean, unless you're charging something 15,000, 20, your thing's not expensive, dude. It's worth it, man.
Sure. So I get what you mean. Like, yeah, I mean, pricing is always subjective and depending on, where you are in business and what you offer. but I'd say for the most part, to have that personal one-on-one support is definitely of higher value and of um of and is a lot more effective in developing something versus go reading a book, go listening to a podcast, going taking a course, right? And you could do that self-study, but I definitely would. That's where my goal. So again, I guess I mentioned that because I fully believe that if everyone had their own coach, that this world would be such a different place. That if we can have that space to reflect back, like who it is that we want to be, and what we truly want to do, that would be great. But I know that that's not affordable, and not a priority for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And especially coming from an Asian immigrant household, you know there's definitely that huge stigma on mental and emotional health, right? If we're trying to put money on the table, or sorry, food on the table, who are we to think about trying to learn to be happy or whatnot, right? um and so I think for the most part, I want to be able to offer this to those who might need it more so than others, but might not be able to afford it or feel like they can justify
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing that.
Interesting.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I mean, that's my eventual goal, is to be able to at least provide this in a more affordable way.
Wow.
And for those who obviously would want more personal service, they can go into coaching. But that's why I mentioned the video course first, because that's going to be something that at least is a source of education, a source of information that they could use to apply and implement on their own.
So that one's kind of like like more of a mass market type of thing where a lot of people. That's pretty smart. I really like that, because since it's so much more affordable, people are going to more than likely take it, because people, especially all people of all ages too. Yeah,
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
wouldn't have to ask their parents. If they're like in their 17 to 25 and they're still living at home, they wouldn't have to ask their parents and face
right,
that stigma.
right.
That's pretty smart. That's pretty
Yeah, I think that's actually a really big part of it too, is like now you can do this like self-study on your own, right? I think a lot of I can resonate a lot with, like, I remember when I was embarrassed about reading personal development books or trying to, like, all these titles do sound very extra and
Yeah.
out there, like how to win friends and influence people. And like,
Yeah.
you know, I would be embarrassed about other people seeing that as like, oh, so he's lonely, he needs friends or something, you know what I mean? And
I do, man. I used to, well, that Barnes and Noble is a great place to meet cool people,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
especially with
that's
books
true.
like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you speak a second language or third language?
No, not fluently, unfortunately. I
Uh,
do speak a little Mandarin, but
hey,
not very well.
since you're talking about, you're from a different place, and you probably relate to that same demographic. You
Yeah,
could translate to whatever language they speak. You'd probably go you'd probably go far in two markets.
sure.
Cool.
Yeah, that is a goal of mine too. When I can find more time, is to practice my Mandarin again.
Or just have somebody dub it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, man. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, man. They could go to victorung.com. So victorung.com, which is my name, and you can learn a lot about the content that I'm creating. I have a blog and published on um, many other avenues, as well as a podcast and a YouTube channel. Um, Basically collecting all that I learned and my conversations with other business owners, other creatives, other entrepreneurs on, the emotional battles that we inevitably go through, you know, creating a life of our own. So definitely love to have people there and reach out to kind of share any insights that they might get. But yeah, victoryoung.com. And actually I have a one pager sort of PDF of 11 emotional intelligence exercises to jumpstart your own journey as well, for anyone interested. So they can get that at victoryoung.com/subscribe.
Excellent. So when you repost this video, you can put a link to that.
Yeah.
So interesting question. What is the difference between a video interview and a podcast?
Oh, uh, well, I mean, obviously, besides the format
I
and
don't know what a
visual aspects, yeah.
I literally don't know what a podcast is. What is it?
Oh, podcast it's like a, how do you describe it? It's like a radio show in a way. So it's just audio format. You can go to sites like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and there's people would upload just the audio version of their interview. So potentially you could turn this into a podcast by just stripping the video out of it and uploading that as a file in itself. um
So
yeah,
so does that build so part of video, right, is they're connecting with your expressions, your face,
totally.
but it could also have a negative connotation if they don't necessarily like they have some kind of prejudice or something against you. Does a podcast still build that same amount of trust? And
Well, I mean, obviously it is harder, right, when you're not seeing a face, you're not seeing their expressions. But the other thing with that is, especially a lot of these interviews are long form. I very much appreciate podcasts as a way to multitask with it, right? I could listen to it in the car, I could work out and listen to the conversation. I know a lot of people are now going into video podcasts or video interviews like this, and it does develop a lot more trust, obviously, being able to see people. But yeah, so just in terms of the convenience factor, podcasts will help in that.
can I ask you this question? Can those podcasting services that we just spoke about, can they be used without Wi-Fi?
You'll need the Wi-Fi initially to download it, but yeah, once you download it,
Oh,
then it'll be,
oh wow.
yeah, then you don't need
Well, I
Wi-Fi,
mean that
and
in
they're all
itself
free.
is very powerful without.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because for those longer interviews, I generally don't look at the video as well. Interesting. So I've been listening to podcasts. That's cool. Thank you. See, hopefully, if people who watch it to this part just learn something new. I'm gonna start maybe adding that to some of my strategy as well.
Yeah.
Because with Zoom, they automatically give you the recording as a playback, as a
Exactly.
only in. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for coming on to this interview. I really appreciate your
Yeah.
time. And you actually taught me a lot of cool stuff. And I'm sure this conversation is like really, really good. As far as like dealing with emotions, dealing with, whether to build over beliefs versus to strip some away. Really talking about the 6 seconds, I think it's called 6 second rule or 6 second.
Yeah. Method. Either way.
That's really informative. I really enjoyed that. I'm really glad
Cool.
that I reached out to do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Thanks again for having me, for sure.
excellent. Maybe we can have a follow-up one sometime in the future. I don't know exactly, or something. But to the audience watching, thank you so much for tuning into this. I was about to say podcast, to this video. For more content just like this, I recommend you go check out my group called Uncapped Growth Strategies. There's going to be a link in the description below. As the name suggests, we're giving you everything that you need to do to move forward towards the life that I believe you deserve, whether that's to not have a commute, whether that's to be able to, buy a new car, whether that's whatever you're searching for. I'm not in front of you right now, so I don't know. I'm sure that we have something that can help you move forward. We have interviews just like this with successful business owners and for people who are just, really far down the path that maybe you'd like to be. If that's something that interests you, I recommend you go check out the group in the description below. Have a great day, guys. Thanks so much once again to Victor, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.